Here, the Rainmaker obviously has the tense itchiness of a penultimate episode, which is perhaps for the best given that the journey to this point hasn't always been easy. Rudy's one-step forward, two-step back strategy to both gathering evidence and in-court lawyering has occasionally seemed irritating, and we've been sidetracked by subplots at every turn, not all of which are directly relevant to the main case. Episode 9 intentionally contains some of that, but the evidence in his favor is now so clear-cut and compelling that minor issues such as the established procedures of the law itself appear to be insignificant. The audience and Rudy himself have been frustrated in part by the obviousness of Melvin's guilt, which was never kept a secret, and the Tinley Britt cover-up, but also by the difficulty of proving it in court due to a ton of red tape and complicated legal procedures that large, costly law firms have perfected. This is fundamentally a David versus Goliath narrative. That was true when Rudy was still working with J. Lyman Stone, but it's more true now since he and Deck are the only members of his law firm following his strategic split from Bruiser. Rudy and Deck must face off against Leo and Sarah in court. Additionally, there is some push-pull tension at the beginning regarding whether Rudy will have to choose between telling the risky truth or supporting a position that can prevail. However, since we already know what Rudy would do, it doesn't last long. In his opening remarks, he deviates from the script and presents his true case, which is that great benefit, with Tinley Britt's assistance concealed not just a wrongful death, but also a series of 15 murders committed by a deranged serial killer who worked for them. Needless to say, that makes things difficult from the start. Rudy is given a day to support his allegation after some back and forth, and he persuades Jackie Lemanchik to testify. Given how strong her evidence is, it seems like a huge thing. However, since the material was obtained unlawfully, none of it is admissible, which is unfortunate for Rudy because his entire argument depends on it. Deck comes up with a good plan to speak on behalf of all of Melvin's victims' families in order to demonstrate a pattern of behavior. But each relative they contact admits they have already been contacted and duped by a Tinley Britt representative. Sarah, who has now clearly moved to the bad side, organized at least one of the bribes. In the last episode, she discovered that Keeley was aware of what was happening and concluded that, since he enjoys literature as well, letting him off the hook was somehow morally required. This is a pretty weak excuse for furthering her own career. She doesn't appear to understand that Leo's almost obsessive love for her is all part of a scheme to exclude Noonan because, should Tinley Britt lose the case, Leo obviously intends to frame him for all the criminal actions he gave him instructions to carry out on the firm's behalf. In between interacting with her father and the FBI, Bruiser's contribution to the case is proposing to re-interview Jackie and question her over the Narpan's machine. Melvin is clearly seen to have ordered morphine from the medical dispensing system, canceled the order, and then took the medicines off record for 3 seconds. Records that Wilfred Keeley claimed were summarily removed as a matter of course end up being preserved indefinitely unless one of the very few knowledgeable superiors orders them to be deleted. This essentially proves that Keeley destroyed evidence and then misled the court. Though it has nothing to do with any of the allegations, Sarah ruthlessly undermines Jackie's reputation primarily over her personal romantic life, which could persuade a jury. In the Rainmaker episode 9, the subplot about Bruiser's father ultimately, albeit somewhat indirectly, contributes to the main case. Bruiser was primarily worried about whether her father had murdered Rosalie or had orchestrated it through Prince, but neither of those scenarios occurred. Although he is corrupt, he is not a killer. It's possible that Bruiser may return to the case against Melvin because he and Prince are leaving town to avoid being arrested by the feds. This would make for an exciting, crowd-pleasing ending. And now that Prince has left Rudy a parting gift, Melvin, chained up in the basement, it will undoubtedly be simpler.